Welcome back. 412-575-2600 on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. Also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. Jarrett kicks off on Twitter and says, who are your Super Bowl picks? I got the Pats versus the Saints, with New Orleans taking home their second championship. Mine is close to that. I've got Saints and Chargers. I like LA going into the playoffs. There was a point where they were one of the hottest teams in the league. We've seen them go on the road and light up some opposing defenses. I think they can do that in Baltimore. I also think they can go into a place like Foxborough and give the Patriots all they can handle with their defense up against the Chargers offense. So I like Chargers and Saints in the Super Bowl. Kind of a dark horse on the AFC side, but the Saints having that home playoff schedule, last time they had that kind of seeding and they had the home field advantage, they went to the Super Bowl. And here's the thing. I believe New Orleans is not, was it 5-0 in games that Drew Brees starts at home in the playoffs? I think that says a lot. So New Orleans is a team that I really do like going into the NFC side of the playoffs. Let's go to Josiah in San Antonio. Josiah, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Okay. Josh, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. Just quick things about the Ben and AB controversy. I think Big Ben deserves a lot more credit than when I hear people. They keep blaming it all on AB. First, Ben, he took shots at James Washington. Then he also got Haley fired. And then on top of that, he's telling AB in meetings he doesn't have to throw him the ball. My question is, this locker room is just spiraling out of control. And why can't they hold on to AB? Because from what I hear, it looks like they're getting ready to move away from him.
Well, here's what it really boils down to. And I've had a lot of different theories on this. I am one of those people, when it first came up in question during the course of the season and Ben tried to blow it off and AB tried to push it to the side with his infamous "me and Ben laugh at you guys" line that I guess that they called themselves laughing at us in the media for asking questions about him and Ben, and then there was the whole Wi-Fi connection comment. I did not buy it for a second. I never bought it. I never believed it. I never believed that those two hang out or talk to each other on text and laugh about what the media say. I don't believe it at all. I never believed it. I don't think that's a relationship that was at its best, probably, at least in the most recent past. So that's something I never bought into. As far as keeping him around, you got to talk to the guys, in the front office. I thought Mike Tomlin made himself clear. I thought there were a lot of messages sent between the guys that were in that locker room. Al Villanueva talked about it after the season was pretty much all but over when Cleveland lost to Baltimore. He said, look, having talent's great. He said, talent's fantastic, but you got to be able to play as a team. And he thought that was something that had been overlooked in that locker room. And the more messages you heard from various guys just that night alone, I was in that locker room after that game against Cincinnati, you heard a lot more about guys playing as a team, or maybe guys just maybe not sacrificing enough for the group. And that's a message that really, to a man, was coming out of that room a lot that Sunday night. And we found out after the fact it was probably largely centered around Antonio Brown. So when you have those guys in that room that aren't thrilled about what's going on, you got a front office that's probably not happy and a coach that seems to be not happy. I think that's the reason why there's talk about maybe Antonio Brown not being a Steeler in 2019. Let's go to Al in Bethel Park. Al, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Josh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Here's what you do to the Steelers coaching staff. Tom Bradley, see you later. Keith Butler, he should have been gone. Here's what you do. The two teams have given New England, that's your goat, your guy you're chasing. The two teams that have given New England the most trouble have been Denver and especially Baltimore. That they seem to be New England's Achilles heel. Your coaching staff fills, your secondary coach, Rod Woodson. That's self-explanatory. Your linebackers coach is that lady that Keith Arians hired, and your defensive coordinator is Marvin Lewis. He was the foundation of those Baltimore defenses that killed New England. And despite Cincinnati's troubles, they've had a very good defense. They just have knuckleheads over there. But look at Drake Kirkpatrick. You look at Geno Atkins. They have some players. Perfect, we know he's a clown. But Marvin Lewis doesn't play that soft-covered, get-up 3rd and 20 defense. He plays in your face, man-to-man. The Steelers have athletes. Marvin Lewis gets along with Tomlin well, and despite Cincinnati's problems, he knows defense. Rod Woodson knows secondary. And you hear Bruce Arians talk, that lady can coach linebackers. I want to hang up and hear your comments. Thanks, Josh.
That's the first Jen Stelzer, or Jen Stelzer, I believe is her name. That's the first endorsement I've heard for her on this staff. That's thinking outside the box. Calls like that, I like listening to because it's a different thing we hear the same thing like every day for weeks on end, it becomes a little bit annoying. When you hear something that's different outside the box like that, I like that way of thinking. I have one argument against the Marvin Lewis thing, though. And this is something that I actually pointed out during the World's Worst Football preview with my guy Greg Finley on Sunday morning, 7 a.m., 93.7 The Fan. We talked about this with Cincinnati's defensive backfield. Their safeties, Williams and the kid from Wake Forest right now, Bates, those two had combined for, I think, 8 interceptions going into the game against the Steelers. Did you know going into that game and that the season ended without a single cornerback with an interception? All their picks came from their safeties and their linebackers, and I think one defensive lineman. Not a single corner that you listed, not one of them had a pick. Isn't that strange? That's even worse than what the Steelers corners did, if you can wrap your mind around that. I see where you're trying to go with it, but Cincinnati's defensive backfield might not have been the best example. Marvin Lewis is a defensive coordinator. I don't hate that thought. I don't hate it because he's got enough experience in the league, and a lot of his background was based as a defensive coach. So I don't hate the thought of that. I would not mind the thought of Rod Woodson as a secondary coach, but here's the thing. Your secondary coach can be Deion Sanders coming out of the NFL Network booth. You got to have the bodies to make it work. You have to have guys that don't lead the league in dropped interceptions like the Steelers did. You have to have guys that still make the plays. So sometimes it doesn't matter who the coach is. If the players don't make the plays, there's only so much the coaches can do. So, yeah, you can replace the secondary coach. You can replace the linebackers coach. You still need bodies. Have they replaced Ryan Shazier, or did I miss something? Has that guy shown up? I mean, don't get me wrong. John Bostic, the first half of the season, looked pretty good on first and second down. L.J. Fort turned into a great guy in the sub package. Pretty good guy to have, and started getting more snaps and made more plays. But do they have that kind of impact guy in the middle of that field? I haven't seen him yet. Have they really found a guy that can complement Joe Hayden? Have they really found someone else in the secondary at the safety position that can step up and be that anchor? I haven't seen that guy yet. So we can keep replacing secondary linebackers coaches all we want to. Do you have the bodies on the field? I don't think they're there yet. Let's go to Whalen in Washington. Whalen, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Yeah, this is Whalen.
How you doing?
Okay. I'm just on hold.
No, you're talking to me. What's up?
Oh, is this Josh?
Yes.
Hi, Josh. Always good to hear from you. Good to see you on television. Yes. Hey, just a couple things. I'm 55 years old. In my closet, I think I got a Franco Harris shirt and Terry Bradshaw shirt. One of my lady friends got like an Antonio Brown shirt. And, I think what that Villanueva said, like a team kind of thing, might have something to do with it. I think you already hit on it, but that's all I got.
Thanks. That was a good piece of nostalgic history. I got a Joe Green one hanging in my closet just for pretty much, throwback purposes, since we're, just cataloging everything. Got to take a break. We'll be back in a minute.